We all do amazing things in our lives, but we have choices. And we have a choice whether we will carry baggage or instead we will carry a treasure chest. Yes, a treasure chest. You're wondering about what that was. But I am going to take you on more than a journey of a treasure hunt. I want to take you on a journey into life. And I want you to think about certain things. Like, what are the things that you will bring with you on your journey? What will you put in your treasure chest as you build this bridge to the future? So before I take you on the journey, I have to lay down a few little understandings. I was born with 3 advantages. Now, you're going to be wondering about these advantages. Bear with me. My choice in choosing these advantages lay in a decision, my philosophy. In life, there are no barriers. There are only solutions. Advantage number 1. I was born in apartheid South Africa, a hard era in the racial problems of Southern Africa. Tough. Advantage number 2. I was born in a working class family. We did not have much money. I was poor. Advantage number 3. You see, I can walk today, but I don't take this for granted because I could not always walk. I was only born with 1 complete hip socket in the left hip. As a result, I went through 3 major surgeries by the age of 5. That last surgery left me in a body cast from my ankle to my chest. If I wanted to see a different view, a nurse or a doctor physically had to pick me up and shift me around. Remax, you hear me speak about 3 advantages, but you've just heard me speak about prejudice, economic hardship, and physical disability, and you're saying, this guy is crazy. Those are not advantages, those are huge disadvantages. I beg to differ. You see, when you have a philosophy that in your life there are no barriers, you will only find solutions. That is when we have a choice whether we shall carry baggage or whether we shall carry a treasure chest. But some of these choices don't just happen because we want things. They happen because people guide us in our journey. They help us along. And one of those critical people who helped me in my journey is a woman that I have the utmost and greatest respect for. A woman that I call Mom. Okay, let's get that. Okay, and so my mother was the person who influenced me the most. My mother did not allow me to feel sorry for myself as a disabled kid. She said sometimes you have to work harder, you have to work smarter because life isn't always fair. But let me tell you more about my mother. My mother went to university in an era when very few women attended university in South Africa. And she ended up receiving a scholarship to go to the United States, where she did her master's. And she graduated in 1948. Very few women, even in the United States, graduated from university. And my mother believed in education. She believed that that was the only way that in South Africa we could break the problems of apartheid and break the bonds that are holding us back in poverty. She believed that education should be available to all South Africans, irrespective of race, color, creed, or sex. She returned to South Africa to speak about her values and what really, really mattered. The government saw her as a threat. And they closed doors to her, put her under house arrest to silence her. But they could not silence this woman I call Mom. She became a high school teacher where she influenced so many young minds and so many young people to be the best that they could be. And she helped many of these young people get into university, and some became doctors. There are more scientists, doctors in our community that got their start because of this woman I call Mom. And in this process with my mother, at one point, she developed cancer. She had a double mastectomy. And the people who rallied in behind her to help save her life were her students who she had helped get into university because they were saving the life of their teacher. Now, my mother did not become a teacher and help these kids get into university because one day she would need them. She became a teacher because she believed in doing the right thing. She believed in making a difference. And hence, our whole community benefited, including my mother. We don't know, with what you do, you are not just selling real estate. You're not just selling houses or apartments. You are helping to create homes. Homes for people to raise their families in. You're also helping to create investments that will help protect the future for other generations. Like my mother, you do more than just a job in one area. You collaborate, you inspire, you make a difference. And so I learned to ask myself 4 powerful questions. And if I can answer yes to these 4 powerful questions, life should be easy or easier. And these became a big part of what guides me on my journey as I help to choose my treasures. That first question is, whatever I do, is it right for me? And I can say yes. The second question, whatever I do, is it right for my family? And again, we can say yes, including a drug dealer. A drug dealer can say, look at the nice house, the nice car, the nice school my family has access to. And most people stop right there. That third question is, what I do, is it right for my community? Now the drug dealer is in trouble. As a teacher, my mother was a part of a community. Today, we live in a global community. And what happens in one part of the world has ramifications in multiple other parts of the world. Let's just look at the impact of Brexit and what Brexit can have on the European markets and our entire global community. And that last question, what I do, is it right for the next generation? If we think about question number 3 and question number 4, if we think about our communities, if we think about future generations, then we will always do the right things by ourselves and our families. Imagine what the world could look like if that focus was on helping our community to become stronger and passing on the baton to this next generation. Because believe me, one day you and I shall be old. And we will not sit in these seats here in Palma, Majorca. There will be another generation younger than us who will take this place. If we don't like what the world has become, it is not because we failed ourselves. It is because we have failed the next generation. We have failed to give them the tools to solve the big problems, the big global challenges. So I challenge you, be curious about the world and your place in the world, and how you can shape your journey and your direction as we keep building these bridges. And now, let us begin our journey. So here I'm a kid in South Africa, a kid who's dreaming about life, a kid who's in a hospital bed in a plaster cast from his ankle to his chest. And a doctor one day asks me what was my interest, and I said boats. You see, my father had been at sea as a diver, a commercial diver. And then, unfortunately, he became an alcoholic. And he could not hold down a job. And he tried to sell. But he never lost his love of the sea. He passed that love on to me. And in between my surgeries, I learned to swim. I grew up in a coastal city, South Africa, Cape Town, with the ocean around me. So it was natural to be drawn to the water and to boats. That doctor, a few days later, when he asked me what my interest was, he showed up with a stack of magazines, sailing magazines. And a picture will paint 1,000 words. I saw photographs of beautiful yachts gliding through the water. And I thought, maybe someday I could be on a boat. I saw pictures of tropical islands. And I thought, maybe someday I could experience a Caribbean island. What those photographs did was give me hope. And hope is the energy of change. When you can help your customers have the hope of finding their dream home, or the hope of finding the right investment portfolio in property, You are helping dreams prepare for a future. But we don't do these things alone. We do it because we are inspired by people, and we inspire people. We work together. We support each other. And so with the dreams of my father and the help of this doctor, I hung on to that dream of sailing. And I used to hobble around with crutches. And my school friends used to play the game of soccer. And I would be on the sidelines, and I wanted to be with them and play with them, but they said, you can't. You're not one of us. You're a sissy. You're on crutches. You're disabled. Give up. And instead of being rejected and dejected, I went to the libraries, and I read books. And one day, I read a book that was changed my life forever. Joshua Slocum, Sailing Alone Around the World. The story of a man who had circumnavigated the planet at the end of the 1800s, 1895 to 1899. When I read this book, I knew I wanted to be a sailor. I wanted to own a yacht. I wanted to explore the oceans of the world and see a place called Cape Horn, the southernmost cape of the universe. I remember going to my dad and saying, hey, Dad, please, can you have a boat? Can you have a boat? But my father had no money. We were poor. But my mother said, son, stay dreaming. Never, ever give up. The application of knowledge will give you your freedom. So I said, Dad, if you can't buy me a boat, will you at least take me to the local yacht club? It was rich. It was elitist. The only time somebody from my community went to a yacht club was to fix broken gear on those boats, not to be an equal, but with courage and perseverance. I went and asked people, please, will you take me sailing? No. Will you take me sailing? No. How about you? Will you take me sailing? Will you take yes? And guess what? I got onto the water, and I got seasick. But I read that some of the best sailors got seasick, but they overcame it by being involved. When I showed up on that boat, I had no knowledge of sailing. What I did have was passion and enthusiasm. As you build your teams and your collaboration, find people who are passionate about real estate, who are enthusiastic about building a strong customer base. Because again, when you combine the passion and the enthusiasm, you make magic. And we can make magic. I love being on those boats. And I said to my school friends, one day, I will own a yacht. What do you think they did? They laughed. They said, you'll never have a boat. You're poor. Give up. So I got myself a red jacket, a red sailing jacket. And I said, someday, when I own a yacht, I will wear this jacket as a symbol of my success. But till that day comes, each time somebody criticizes me and says, I can't do it, I will look at this jacket and know what sacrifices I will make to achieve the goal of owning a yacht. It may have looked impossible, but never give up on those dreams. We truly believe that wherever there are barriers, we will find solutions. I went through my childhood holding on to this dream, and I did what I had to do in order to achieve the basic goals. I learned how to earn money, save that money, and invest that money. And what I did not realize at a young age, the birth of an investment banking organization would grow because of a dream of sailing. I became a diver who took high-risk jobs to earn the money to invest. Never give up on your dreams. And I ended up mining diamonds on the ocean floor. Only deep-water operation in the world. And I saved that money, and when I would go on shore leave, I'd visit boat yards because I wanted to buy a boat. And then I discovered the amount of money I was earning divided by and adding on the interest that I was making on the return on the investment and the appreciation. When I took that and I divided into the cost of the dream yacht, I realized I'd be about 80 years of age before I could afford the boat. So that plan was flawed. But we don't give up. We find a way to navigate around. We find people, because we can't do this alone. We find people to support us. When you have a listing, don't just hang on to the listing and try and sell it yourself. Try and find other sales agents, other brokers who have customers, and engage them in helping you sell the listing. Because this way, through the network, we can achieve so much more. So I knew I couldn't buy the boat. I have to build the boat. So I went to the public libraries, and I found all the books on naval architecture, and I eventually found somebody who would help me build the boat. We began the journey of building this 38-foot boat. When I began to build the boat, I had no idea how I'd finish it because I did not have enough money to finish when I started. Sometimes we always think that when we have everything, we shall start. Beware of that trap, because we never will have enough. But take what you've got and start to build, start to create. Because as you do this, you will find people who will come along and help you and support you. And eventually the time will come when you will eventually get on board and launch that boat. And when I launched this 38-foot boat and I climbed on board for the first time and I was wearing my red jacket, it was a proud moment, a very proud moment. And I wanted to enter a race across the Atlantic Ocean from the United Kingdom, from England to Newport, Rhode Island. And I wanted to become the fourth South African to do this race. And so I needed sponsorship. And I was hunting for people to help and support me. And the media called this big press conference to announce my entry. And the media pointed out that my boat lacked so much. I had so few things. It wasn't big enough. They found all the problems, not what they saw in terms of the vision. And they nicknamed my boat the Floating Coffin. And they said I was going to kill myself in this boat. I am not suicidal. I'm a dreamer. But a dreamer who is realistic. I could not stay. And so with the last of my pennies, I bid my family goodbye, and I bought a few things. I could not afford to buy GPS. It was too expensive in those days. So I bought a sextant, 500-year-old technology. People like Magellan and Ernest Shackleton and all the early explorers, they all had used a device like this to find their way across the ocean. And I bought a book, Celestial Navigation for Yachtsmen. And I set sail. Now, don't ask me where I was for the first 7 to 10 days. I was lost. I was busy reading this book, trying to figure out how to use this device. Thank you. If you don't believe in yourself, why should somebody else believe in you? You truly have to find a way to move forward. You've got to not just think of yourself, but think of the people who support you and have believed in you. The people who helped me build my boat. The people who helped put the mast on. The people who helped get me my sails and build me my sails. They were part of my team. I may be alone in the boat, and some days you feel you are alone out here selling real estate. But there are so many people supporting you and helping you. But it's not without its challenges. Here I am, sailing on the high seas. I've crossed the horizon. I'm in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I've crossed the equator, and I'm feeling lonely. I want somebody to talk to. Just please, somebody to talk to, like a ship. Give me a sign that there's still life out there. And then one day I saw a ship, and I'm looking for the ship. Is that ship really on the horizon? When the boom which carries the mainsail flopped over the deck like a golf club going at a golf ball and split open my eyebrow. And I was in deep trouble. I had no money for a medical kit. All I thought I had on the boat was a rusty seine needle and sailing twine. I could see the bone of my eyebrow. Could you stitch your forehead back together with a rusty needle and sailing twine? Could you? Nah, nor could I. So I had a huge barrier. But if I'm to find a solution to survive, I've got to innovate. I was 800 miles from the nearest doctor, gushing blood. And I remembered, if you have a bleeding wound, if you apply pressure to it, it'll stop bleeding. If you can hold the wound together for long enough, it will coagulate and grow back together again. apply pressure, hold together. And with that, I came with my solution. A clothes peg. I sailed 600 miles like this to go and see a doctor. The doctor looked at my wound and said, "Son, your wound is fine, but you are crazy." This clothes peg, to me, is another symbol in my life of finding a solution to a problem. Whatever happens in the business, there's always a way around it. There's always somebody who can eventually turn to if you have a big enough network who can help you find your solutions. Now, I was heading for England. I didn't quite make England. I had more damage to the boat. I had a few more challenges. I ended up in Ireland where some people helped me to prepare for the race. And I met an Irish lass. I met a beautiful woman, and I fell in love. We became inseparable for a while. But I'm a sailor. And you know what we sailors do? We leave. We sail away, and sometimes we have to break our heart or two. But when I sailed away, I sailed off with the love of this woman. And I went to England to do my first transatlantic race. And I met my hero, Harry Mitchell, a fierce competitor. And when that race started, I threw everything of my heart and soul into the race. I did not see the pitfalls. When I left the dock, I didn't think about the storms. I did not think about the equipment that would fail. I did not think about the big challenges that I may face. What I thought about was getting through the first day, the first week, the first 1,000 miles. And then I thought about the finish line, of what it's going to feel like to cross the finish line. If you focus on what can go wrong, you are losing energy by not focusing on what can go right. Be optimistic, not pessimistic. Always focus on the finish line of what you've got to do. And when I crossed the finish line, it was an amazing experience. And I decided, now I want to go to the next level. I went back to Ireland and back to Gwen. And for me, that next level was to race solo around the world. This was a huge undertaking. And I said, "Gwen, I want you to head up my shore support crew, because again, I can't do this alone." And so she and I began to hunt for sponsorship. We tried to find corporations to financially back us. And one of the most frustrating things in that process, we were reaching out to financial leaders, and they would not call us back. It doesn't matter how small or how big you are. When somebody contacts you, even if the answer is no, do the right thing and just communicate and say, "Sorry, this won't work for me," or "Sorry, not interested." Just get back to people. It is so easy to get caught up in just being busy and say, "Oh, well, I'm going to ignore that." Well, someday somebody's going to ignore you. Don't ignore your customers. Don't ignore potential that may someday impact your life. It was frustrating not being able to raise the money, and the clock was ticking. So instead of building a new boat, I then decided we'll buy a second-hand boat, because now we were closer to the start of the race, September of 1994. And I raised some money, but not enough to buy a second-hand boat. And now I was in trouble. There's nothing worse than any one of you or I making a promise to a customer or to a community and not being able to deliver. I had to find a way to get to the race, even if I now could not afford to buy a second-hand boat. We had hauled the old boat out of the water to save money. Gwen and I were living on the boat in a shed. And I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. Why doesn't anybody believe in me? But this is not about you. This is about what can we do for others. And I started thinking about the race. I've got to go. How do I get there? And then I had an idea. The minimum size requirement for the round-the-world race is 40 feet. How big was my boat? 38 feet. How big is my problem? feet. Just 2 feet. So I rush out, I get plywood, I get fiberglass mat, epoxy resin, and we stretch the back of the boat, and we repaint my boat, we rename my boat, and I showed up at the world's greatest yacht race in my new 40-foot yacht. Truly, when you want something badly enough, and when you have the right team behind you, you can figure this out. And I ended up starting the greatest solo race from South Carolina in the United States on the first leg to Cape Town, South Africa, my home port. It's a race of 4 legs. And I focus only 1 leg at a time, not the whole event. And when I arrived, racing neck and neck with my hero, Harry Mitchell, when I arrived in Cape Town, South Africa, I beat my hero over the finish line. Harry came last, I came second last. But you know what really matters? It's not about where you come. It's absolutely not about where you come. What truly matters is about starting. You can't win. You can't finish if you never, ever start. And so, Gwen helped prepare the boat for the second leg. And now we're racing from South Africa to Australia. Again, I'm alone on the boat. When I say we, the boat is part of my team. It's my family. Gwen is my support crew with all the volunteers who are ashore. But we are still one. And I get deep into the Southern Ocean. I'm racing neck and neck with Harry Mitchell. And the next thing, I hit a major storm. And in the storm, I'm surfing on these big waves. My boat turns upside down. And it pops back upright from a knockdown. And my mast was broken. And now I was in deep, deep trouble. Under what is called a jury rig. I limped back to South Africa. And the South African media said, gee, the floating coffin has almost killed you. Give up. It was a tough moment. When I got back to South Africa, there were some very difficult decisions that had to be made. Gwen flies back from Australia back to South Africa, and people are telling me, give up. I find some money with another sponsor to put a new mast on the boat. And I then do the mathematics because I still want to go. I have unfinished business. The fleet has left Australia and they're crossing the Pacific Ocean for Cape Horn, and I'm in South Africa. I did the mathematics. X number of thousands of miles. I know how many miles per day my boat does. So I work out how many days it would take me to get across the Indian Ocean, restock, and then across the Pacific Ocean. And then I laid that information on top of the climatology. And I realized that I would arrive at Cape Horn in the heart of winter with storms so severe, with waves bigger than this building, 100+ miles of wind. And I knew I could not do that. I was too afraid of those conditions. And fear is a good thing to have because it sometimes saves your life. And so I decided to retire from the race. People said I dropped out. I didn't drop out. I preserved my life so that I could fight a battle another day again. And then, I said to Gwen, as we can't make it across the Pacific Ocean, how about we go across the Atlantic Ocean? We sail from South Africa to Uruguay. And then you fly from Uruguay back to America, and I sail alone. So she agreed. And every day on that passage, she was seasick. Amazing when somebody loves you, what they will endure to be with you. And whilst we were making that crossing, we get devastating news. In an area some 2,000 miles in the Pacific Ocean side of Cape Horn, a distress beacon was activated. The Chilean Air Force flies out to go and search. After 4 days, the battery in the beacon stops transmitting because that's the life of the battery of a distress beacon. They continue their search. I arrive in Uruguay, and when we got to Uruguay, they called the search off. They were searching for my friend and hero, Harry Mitchell. Harry was in his 70s when he died at sea. He died in horrific conditions, but he died with his sea boots on and probably a big grin on his face and say, I lived my best life. He died loving what he did. He knew the risks, but he was willing to make the sacrifices and take the calculated risk. It just didn't work. But he left behind a powerful message for you and I. Live each and every day as if it is your last day, because someday we shall be right. We know the day we are born. We don't know when we're going to leave. It's what do we do in between with this life? We must make it count. We must make sure the people we surround ourselves with are people we love and admire, we cherish, and we give our best. Because when we take that last breath, there is no turning back. It is the legacy that we shall be remembered for. I arrive in Uruguay. I sail solo now back to America. I can't stay around for 3 years and do nothing. So I say to Gwen, I want to do the race from England to America a second time. Come with me back to England. Come back to Europe. So we sail back to Europe. She helps prepare the boat for the next race, which is from England back to Newport, Rhode Island. And when the race starts, she's waiting for me in America, and I am making the crossing solo. And I come out of the English Channel and I encounter major fog. And I'm pushing my boat flat out in this major fog, day after day after day. And I'm about a third of the way into the race when I get hit by a Russian freighter. And my boat has a huge hole in it. And my boat is sinking. And the US Coast Guard says, abandon the boat and climb onto the freighter. But that boat was my home. That boat was my baby. Everything I created was in that boat. I could not give up my boat. So instead of giving up the boat, I got myself a huge pump. And every hour, I would go to the front of the boat and I'd pump. I'd pump hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water out of the boat. It would take me about 15 minutes. Then I'd go up on the deck, I'd trim the sails towards the nearest land, but as the water stopped coming in, no. So I'd go back again and pump. Another 15 to 20 minutes, hundreds of gallons. Go and get some sleep, come back and pump. Go and fix a meal, come back and pump. I pump 15 minutes every hour. And I did this 24 times a day, and I did this for 15 days. I'd like to do that for 15 days. It's hard work, but hard work pays off. I got to the finish line third in class. It is our determination that will get us across any finish line. We will again do what we have to do. The markets right now could be shifting. Europe could be teetering towards a recession. The United States could be teetering towards a recession. There could be a global recession, and we may have to pump again. But again, tune out the noise, because when you are focused on what you do, and you do it well, and you've got a good team behind you, and a good network behind you, it doesn't matter how big the freighter is that hits you, you always will come out on top. Count on your network. Build this bridge to this future. Learn from each other in this audience, because here is your pump to keep the water out of your boat. Now that I'd crossed and survived that race, I decided to enter the round the world race again in the same boat. And once more, Gwen was a part of the team. I had unfinished business. And I'm pleased to say that in 1998, that first leg, I get to Cape Town 14 days faster than my previous time, beating some of the multi-million-dollar entries and the big boats with my little boat. So now Gwen has prepared the boat for the leg across the Indian Ocean to Auckland, New Zealand. Different routes likely. And the only big deal that happened on that leg, I got a bit of frostbite. But, you know, you survive these things. I was so far in the Southern Ocean, it was very, very cold. But now, the third leg of the race. The third leg is the one that scares the heck out of me. That third leg was going to take me very deep into the Southern Ocean near the icebergs. Not only would it be cold, it was going to be dangerous. That third leg was going to take me around Cape Horn. For centuries, Vessels have tried to round Cape Horn, and not every ship gets around. It was Harry Mitchell's dream to see Cape Horn. He died 2,000 miles shy of the Horn. I was taking on an ocean that could take my life. That scares me. But again, you have to dig deep inside of you for the courage to keep going, in spite of your fears. And I pushed the boat hard towards Cape Horn. And when I was 300 miles from Cape Horn, again, once more, I hit a major storm. And in this major storm, I pulled all my sails down. And my boat is surfing off these big monster waves with no sails up. And every few minutes, my boat turns upside down. The mass in the water, the gear in the sky. We call it a knockdown. I went through 38 of these knockdowns in the first 4 hours of the storm that raged 12 hours. And I was wondering, would this boat be my floating coffin? Or have I got the right to live, or will I die?
Yeah, that's a Roger, and especially with the barometers falling. Manoro, is your barometer falling as well, over?
On March 11th, 1999, 300 miles before Cape Horn, Neal's dream trip turns into a nightmare. A massive storm hits. Winds are as strong as a hurricane. The waves smother him as he rides out the storm in the cockpit. Tethered to the deck with a 2-foot safety harness, he pulls down all his sails and tries to steer his boat through the churning swells. Repeatedly, his boat is knocked over.
Unfortunately, this is the result of all the knockdowns. We've taken all over the place. Lockers broken. So it's been pretty tough.
2 days after surviving the storm, Neal sights Cape Horn. At last, he experiences the awe others wrote about in the books he read as a child. He feels immense joy. After all, more people have traveled into outer space than have sailed past this place alone.
Well, there she is, the Horn and I. What a sight. And it's just been absolutely great being here. It's taken 17 years of dreaming. It's taken a lot of planning, a lot of preparation. It's taken the support of many people. My sponsors, my family, most important Gwen. But we are here. I think of Harry Mitchell, who gave his life for this site. And a few minutes ago, I paid tribute to my friend Harry. You know, it's a very special place, this, the bottom of the world, the edge of the world. And to get here takes courage, perseverance, determination, dedication. It takes a dream. I'm 31 years of age, and I've lived my dream now. It's taken hard work, but it was worth it. I've risked my life through 77 knots wind storms, but it was worth it. I hope every young person has an opportunity to live their dream as I've now lived mine, to look at this magic piece of land.
Thank you. Thank you. Of all the billions and billions of people who have lived on this planet, about 8,000 to 9,000 people have gone to the summit of Mount Everest. Of these billions, about 700 people have gone into outer space on the space program. But in the history of mankind, less than 250 of us have sailed or raced solo around our entire planet via the Southern Ocean and Cape Horn. In 1999, I joined the most exclusive group, the most exclusive family of adventurers, not to prove my critics wrong, but to prove to myself that I was right to dream, that I could take a boat that some called the floating coffin to the furthest corners of this planet and survive. If I can take on these feats, whatever your dreams are, you can find the team who can help you to achieve those goals and to make our community and our next generation stronger. When I arrived in Uruguay, Gwen helped me prepare for now the last leg, the leg home. And the day before the start, she asked me if the boat was ready to go to sea. And I said, yes. And then she said, well, I'm leaving. And I said, you mean tomorrow after the race starts? I said, no. I can't take being alone with you out in the high seas. I can't take the phone calls of all the challenges of threatening your life and the loss of our friends who have died at sea. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. She was leaving me. I tried to tell her how much I loved her. It didn't matter. I watched her walk down the dock, and I've never seen her since that day. I was devastated. I had to climb onto that boat and sail the last leg, knowing she would never be on the finish line ever again waiting for me. It was extremely hard, but I had to finish the mission. I had to go through and do what I had to do, not just for me, not just for her, but for the whole team of people who had supported me in this journey. And then there was the finish line. I had just raced 27,000 miles around the world. I had spent 9 months from the time I left America to returning to America. And I'd been at sea collectively for 195 days, 16 hours in total isolation. And I came ashore, and there were hundreds and hundreds of school kids waiting for me. And it was a most amazing feeling, because it took me 18 years of dreaming to accomplish this goal. The night of the prize-giving party. It was the best night and the worst night. It was the best night because I received my trophy for finishing this race. This race is so hard, everybody who comes home is a winner. Harry Mitchell, my hero, died dreaming of holding that trophy. But I was sad for 2 reasons. That first reason is Gwen was not in the audience. There is no way I could race around the world without her. She led that team. She was such an integral part of my success. It was sad that she couldn't be there to see the final victory of what we had created together. But I was sad for a second reason. Now, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Where do I go from here? How do I reinvent myself? And that's very hard. When you become successful, it's very hard trying to figure out what you will do next. But this is where you count on your team. So I move into a cottage, and I begin working on my autobiography, Journey of a Hope Merchant. And I get back out there, and I'm dating again. And I come home from a date one evening, not long after the race, only to discover my house had burnt down. I lost everything. I lost the original manuscript to the book. I lost my trophies. The only few things to survive was the sextant and this book. Everything else, including my photographs, were gone. I was devastated again. But, you know, you just got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You've got to just figure these things out. You can't let them pull you down. So now I am heading back to the house, trying to figure out what I'm going to do when the transmission in my car falls out. And I'm wondering, Gwen leaves me, house burns down, car breaks. Am I supposed to be ashore? What's the big picture here? And there's always a big picture. So I call a car dealer friend, I tell him what I needed, what my budget was, and 2 days after the fire, the day after the car had broken apart, he calls me up and says, guess what, I got a car, it's in your budget, come and get it. I phone my various dates, they're at work. I call various friends, I get voicemail. And a stranger calls me. And the stranger says, hey, I read in yesterday's newspaper about the fire. What can I do to help? I said, how about a little car dealer, please, today? On August the 7th, 1999, at 5 p.m., my life was transformed forever. I met this stranger who was giving me a lift to the car dealer. Wow, she's cute. We went to the car dealer, we went to a movie, we went to dinner, and 5 months after we had met, I ended up marrying her. This was the good that came out of the fire. And I want to introduce you to my wife, to darling Christy Petersen. Come up here, darling, come and join me. You know, in the worst of the worst moments came on the brightest lights of my life. You never, ever give up on those dreams. And now today, Darlene and I have traveled the world, and we get to join you in Majorca. 20 years we have now experienced, explored, and made a difference. When you have the right relationship, when you have the right partner, 1 and 1 is not equal to 2. 1 and 1 is the 11th power. So dream, and dream big. And dream big. And just know that you can do anything and everything. It is build this team and just go forward in this world and understand life is a beautiful journey. There is a bridge to the future, and we will not tolerate racism. We will not tolerate xenophobia. We will always work to do the best that we can do because we are one great team. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.